Okay, let's sing another hymn, number 151. Lord of all being, throned afar, thy glory flames from sun and star, center and soul of every sphere, yet to each seeking heart how near. Hymn 151. I did forget to mention that some of us went to see the choir that Nicholas sings in, Simeon sings in from Wesleyan last night. It was very good. They sang in a church in Barrington, and I think we all enjoyed it, so that was a nice thing. Yeah?
I was in chorus, and I know how difficult it is.
Some of those songs were very difficult that they sang, yeah.
And it's very, 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 very much appreciated when you do that.
It is. Now, as you can see from the screen, our brother Dan is going to talk about Refugee like Thee. That's going to be the title of his talk. And I'm going to try to read, even in the dark here, about from Ruth 2, verses 1 through 13. Now, Naomi had a kinsman of her husband's, a man of wealth of the family of Elimelech, whose name was Boaz. And Ruth the Moabitess said to Naomi, "Let me go to the field and glean among the ears of grain after him, in whose sight I shall find favor." And she said to her, "Go, my daughter." So she set forth and went and gleaned in the field after the reapers. And she happened to come to the part of the field belonging to Boaz, who was of the family of Elimelech. And behold, Boaz came from Bethlehem. And he said to the reapers, "The Lord be with you." And they answered, "The Lord bless you." Then Boaz said to his servant, who was in charge of the reapers, "Whose maiden is this?" And the servant who was in charge of the reapers answered, "It is the Moabite maiden who came back with Naomi from the country of Moab." She said, "Pray let me glean and gather among the sheaves after the reapers." So she came, and she has continued from early morning until now, without resting even for a moment. Then Boaz said to Ruth, "Now listen, my daughter, do not go to glean in another field or leave this one, but keep close to my maidens. Let your eyes be upon the field which they are reaping, and go after them. Have I not charged the young men not to molest you? And when you are thirsty, go to the vessels and drink what the young men have drawn." Then she fell on her face, bowing to the ground, and said to him, "Why have I found favor in your eyes, that you should take notice of me when I am a foreigner?" But Boaz answered her, "All that you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband has been fully told me, and how you left your father and mother and your native land and came to a people that you did not know before. The Lord recompense you for what you have done, and a full reward be given you by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge." Then she said, "You are most gracious to me, my lord, for you have comforted me and spoken kindly to your maidservant, though I am not one of your maidservants." Now let's give our attention to our brother Dan, again speaking on Refugee Like Thee.
Success. So I feel a little bit like a refugee the last few weeks. I've been traveling the last couple weeks. Is this loud enough? Is that coming through? Try that. Better? A little bit? So 2 weeks ago, Beth and I and the kids were in Orlando, and Beth and I went to a meeting in the Orlando amended meeting, and we were quite warmly welcomed to fellowship. So if you ever attend Orlando, certainly welcome that or recommend that meeting, and we're really happy that we got to go there. So, refugee like thee. Gee, why a subject like that? Kind of a strange subject. Well, I guess a couple months ago, our lives have all been changed, haven't they? Really, our lives are different. And I know a family's life is very different. I think my life's been turned upside down. Goodness, life is very different. So I thought we'd talk about refugees today. I think you're going to be surprised what we're going to learn, and I hope you benefit as much as I did in preparing. So this is a site. Is that a familiar site? Interesting. Yeah. Interesting what you can find on Google Images. Yeah, it's public. You just type in Pretoria, South Africa camps, and that's what comes up. I thought we might ring a bell or two. So some of us have grown up in houses with brick walls and things, and haven't experienced tent life unless we go camping, right? Well, others of us have different experiences. So you think about refugees. That's fine.
Can you see Dan?
Sure.
No.
If you think about refugees, I think the definition is someone who flees for refuge or safety, especially to a foreign country, as in time of political upheaval or war. So basically it's somebody on the run for some reason, not their own fault, right? It's just due to some circumstances of usually some national problem that causes refugees. We're seeing this in Syria today, that there's just tens of thousands of people, scattered into neighboring countries. Huge problem, especially with winter season coming, or winter season having been here. So there's many refugees in the world, all over the world, right? And some people live like refugees in places like India, which just the standard of living is much lower. But anyway, here's perhaps a fair definition of what a refugee is. Here's a permanent refugee housing in Israel. So this is Ramallah. I also saw a refugee housing near Jericho in one of my travels there, and it's just pitiful. I mean, this looks good compared to the one I saw. The one I saw was very old and just, a place you wouldn't want to see children raised. So there's many places in the world, but even in the Holy Land, there's many refugee camps, some more permanent camps and some more temporary. Refugees have a life on the road. It seems like what we count normal housing is not so normal. So refugees are constantly thinking about their next meal and where they're going to live and what they're going to do. So here's a family that looks like the car's broken down, which wasn't much of a car to start with, and now they're on their foot. So it seems like a lot of refugees have children always. There's a common thread that there's many children involved in being refugees, and that makes it all the more difficult. So if I was to ask you your own self, if I was to ask you one word that would describe refugee, what one word would you say? Give me some words, single words.
Nomadic.
What? Nomadic, good one.
Desperate.
Desperate.
Homeless.
Homeless.
Hopeless.
Hopeless. Fearful. Fearful, good one. Other ones.
Alien.
Alien.
Dependent.
Dependent.
Fear.
Pardon? Fear.
Destitute.
Destitute. All right, those are a lot of the same things I thought about. Ooh, look at that. Abigail, good one. These are just some of the ones that came to my mind when I first started thinking about this. In some way, each of these applies to what we know as refugees in the world today. So that's kind of a negative sense we see of when we think refugees. We see the problems and the downside and just the terribleness of the situation. There's also, I think, another upside. So if we think about the upside of refugees, I think of what I thought 2 months ago. Now what I think today, I see a family of refugees and I think differently. I don't think the same as what I used to think. So now I think of people who are thankful and people who are spiritual, people who are thoughtful. Some of you don't know a story, but when Kiza first sent us a note by email, who are you guys? How can I find you? She sent it to our church website. I called her back and, she says she's got 8 people. Oh no, 8 people. She tells me the location. Like, oh no, my car holds 8. I can't hold 8, and we got to pick up Steve. So my initial conversation was, well, I can take 6. Can you pick 6? And this is the insensitive me saying, Kiza, pick 6, right? It's easy. It's logical. That's what fits in the car. And, Kiza, as being a thoughtful person, how could she pick among her family who would come to church and who wouldn't? I don't know. She probably didn't tell you that. But she wanted everybody to come. And, after I thought about it, and, we talked about it, it's like, duh. If that was my family, I would want my family all to come. So thoughtful comes to mind now when I think about refugees. Peaceful. Refugees are generally not warlike people. They're peaceful. They're patient. Now, if you knew what this family went through the last month, transitioning to the last 3 months altogether, but the last month, it's ridiculous the amount of patience you got to have just to get through our systems. And we got a lot of systems. Systems are helpful, for different reasons, but boy, there's a lot of things that require a lot of patience. And now when I think of refugees, I think about patience. Working. Refugees are willing to work. They want to work. They just need an opportunity to work. They're helpful. They share. And they care. I thought that was pretty interesting, just the first set of lists, what we think about refugees, and now a different list, a more positive list. So refugees in the Bible they go way back, don't they? You think, who's a refugee in the Bible? Well, nearly everybody. But I thought the first ones were probably Cain, right? Cain killed Abel. God gives him a punishment. He kicks him out, out of the pool. Here you go. So he kicks him out, and here's what he says. He says, "Now you are under a curse, driven from the ground, which opens its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. When you work the ground, it will no longer yield its crops for you. You will be a restless wanderer on the earth. Restless wanderer, right? So Cain says, my punishment is greater than I can bear, more than I can bear. Today you are driving me from the land, and I will be hidden from your presence, and I will be a restless wanderer on the earth, and whoever finds me will kill me. Seems kind of like the life of a refugee. So here's our picture of Cain. He's done his deed, and now he's fleeing. He's on the run. He's a refugee. Fortunately for Cain, God protects him. He takes care of him. And that's actually one of the lessons of refugees that we're going to learn about you and me. That as refugees, all of us, God takes care of us. God is our refuge for all refugees. Another refugee you probably think about, I started thinking about different ones, is Joseph. So Joseph, he was as good of a young man as he could be, does his father's will. Father tells him to go check on the brothers. He goes, checks on the brothers. Brothers hate him, of course. Brothers about to kill him. They probably would have, except for one brother saves him. They decide to sell him. They sell him to the traders, the Midianites. Midianites basically take him as a refugee. He's taken hostage, and he's taken down to Egypt, and he's just a slave in Egypt. And then worse, then he ends up in jail of no fault of his own. So these refugee stages of Joseph's life go from bad to worse, it seems like, until God intervenes in perhaps what he sees as the positive way. But all along, God's working with him. God is a refuge to Joseph. Joseph recognizes that. And Joseph, I think, was a refugee. So just the story there is when the Midianite traders came by, his brothers pulled Joseph up out of the cistern. They sold him for 20 shekels of silver to the Ishmaelites. And then later Potiphar buys him. So you know the story. Another man is Moses. Moses was a refugee in different points of his life. At one point, he's 40 years old and he flees Egypt, right? So he flees as a refugee, and he's homeless until he finds this man to live with. He lives with him. He marries one of his daughters, and then God calls him, of course, to do great things in Egypt. He goes back to Egypt and does all these great things, comes out of Egypt, and there he's a refugee again. There's Moses. He's homeless. He's wandering. It's all these same things. He's a stranger. He's a sojourner. That's what Moses becomes. He becomes a foreigner in a foreign land. Trent read about Ruth in chapter 2. Well, this part's back in chapter 1, where Ruth replies to her mother-in-law. She says, don't urge me to leave you or to turn back from you. She says, the most beautiful thing in the Bible, she says, where you go, I will go. Where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord deal with me ever so severely, if even death separates you from me. And that's where I think we get the marriage vow, till death do us part. When Naomi realized that Ruth was determined to go with her, she stopped urging her. So Ruth basically becomes a foreigner in a foreign land. She becomes a refugee on the run, sort of. Now she goes to a family who takes care of her, but Boaz recognized that she's a refugee because he says refugees come to find refuge. And she came to find refuge under the God of Israel. And she did indeed. David, the sweet psalmist, David thought to himself one of these times, this happened many times, right, when Saul was chasing him. He says, one of these days I will be destroyed by the hand of Saul. The best thing I can do is to escape to the land of the Philistines. Then Saul will give up for searching for me anywhere in Israel, and I will slip out of his hand. But for many years, David fled from Saul. He was a refugee in his own land, right? He was a hero in his own land on one hand, and then the next day they turned on him at Saul's orders. In fact, we probably all would have done the same thing because those who didn't sometimes got killed. So David was a refugee. In this case, he goes to the land of the Philistines. Of all places, he goes to the enemy, the place where he's killed their great leader, Goliath. He flees to them for refuge. It's interesting. Elijah was a refugee, you might recall. We read this here. It says, the word of the Lord came to Elijah, leave here, turn eastward, and hide in the Kerith ravine east of the Jordan. You will drink from the brook, and I have directed the ravens to supply you with food there. So he did what the Lord had told him. He went to the Kerith ravine east of the Jordan and stayed there. The ravens brought him bread and meat in the morning and bread and meat in the evening, and he drank from the brook. So Elijah, I think, spent 3.5 years out in the wilderness as a refugee, just being taken care of by God, who was his refuge. So God sent him to this refuge just, all on his own, all by himself, totally dependent on God. You might think about Jeremiah, the suffering prophet. Jeremiah, there's a book called Of Whom the World Was Not Worthy, and that's a quote from Hebrews 11. Describes Jeremiah perfectly, of whom the world was not worthy. Jeremiah is just a life of sadness. He's this prophet with all this doom and gloom preaching that he has to give people. It's all bad news his whole life. And when you give people bad news, they don't like you, right? So Jeremiah is continually just basically on the outskirts of people. He becomes a refugee in his own community. So in this case here, this is the end of Jeremiah's life. Now he's different times he's had different problems, but in this case, he's actually taken hostage by his own people down to Egypt. It says they also led away those whom Nebuzaradan, commander of the imperial guard, had left with Gedaliah, the son of Ahikam, the son of Shaphan, the men, the women, the children, the king's daughters, and they took Jeremiah the prophet and Baruch, son of Neriah, along with them. So Jeremiah becomes a refugee among his own people, taken hostage to Egypt, just like Joseph, and he becomes a refugee in Egypt. Yet always, always God takes care of them. Jeremiah knows that God is his refuge. He didn't choose this. Who chooses to be a refugee today? Nobody chooses to be a refugee. Who would want to be that? I don't. Well, Jeremiah didn't either. But we're going to find, and we keep finding that we're in good company as far as refugees in the Bible. Ezekiel. Now we're getting to the Babylonian exile. There's a whole people taken exile, right? They're all just taken hostage, tens of thousands of people. And they all become refugees in the land of Babylon. So Ezekiel, he's called one of the exiles. Exiles is like a refugee, so it's not a good thing. It's not something that we'd all want. So Ezekiel goes to Babylon and he becomes a great prophet there. And the last example here is Daniel. Daniel, you know the story in Daniel chapter 1. Same thing. He's part of those people who are taken to Babylon. Daniel is one of the people of the royal family, it seems, because it says so in Daniel 1. So it says young men without any physical defect, they're calling in the best of the best, right? So Daniel is one of these best of the best. It says those who are showing aptitude for every kind of learning, well-informed, quick to understand, all these good things. They're going to teach him all the good things. Daniel's got life good, right? Most refugees don't have it so good. But I think the earlier life of Daniel wasn't so good, because when you're taken hostage in warfare out of a place 1,000 miles or whatever eastward to a place you don't want to go, that's not good. Daniel ends up with life pretty good as a refugee because God takes care of him. God was his refuge, and Daniel knew that. So refugee in the Bible, some words that you can look up when you think about refugee. They're called strangers, sojourners, aliens, foreigners. You mentioned homeless before. It's not in the Bible, but it comes to mind for us. Fatherless and prisoners of war. So that's refugees in the Bible. But I thought you might think a little more about personal refugees and what life is like. So what's that? It's amazing what you can do with Facebook, isn't it? I learned how to do Facebook. So we have what we call refugees in our midst. I wanted to ask Kiza and Neema to come up and answer a few questions for you. Come on up. Don't be too nervous. So, come on up. You too. You can't get out of it. Neema talks very well. I don't know if you ever talked to her much, but her English is awesome. So that's partly why I asked her. But Kiza's kind of the hero in the family as far as getting you all here. I want you to tell us how you became refugees and what happened. You started telling me something yesterday about how you, well, start with that part. And how'd you get from Congo to South Africa anyway?
Oh, I don't know where can I start because this will take me almost like an hour to start.
Okay, not that long.
To start explaining, it's a lot. Let me just be in a short. What I can remember when I was like 10 years old, it was 1996 when the war started in my country. And then I remember by that time, Asifiwe was like 2 months And then my mom was having a big operation when she gave birth to Asifiwe. Then I was at school, and all my younger sister were at school, and then my father was at work, and my mom was at home. Then the war started. We don't know where it started, and then so we just started hearing the gunshot. So from school we could run. We didn't know the direction where to run to. So you find like from school to get to your place, it will take you long. So or you're gonna get a gunshot and then just die. So each and everyone was taking her direction. So I ran to the house. And then I could find my mom there, and then my father would just come from work straight, and we didn't have time to put on the clothes and start. So we started running by following the huge people were running from different kind of houses. So we don't know where we're going. So you're just going. So but we don't know where we're going is where people were shooting, or we don't know. So we just ran from the forest where we don't know the direction. So we found ourselves we're just in the big forest. And before we reached the big forest, there was a river. So from there we slept, hunger, nothing to eat, nothing to drink. My mom was breastfeeding Asifiwe, so you know how to breastfeed without eating. It's very difficult with a big operation, and then they have to take some stitch out from the operation. So from there we ran to Tanzania. I don't know if you know Tanzania.
How far was that?
Tanzania, yeah. It's from Congo to Tanzania is 2 days, 3 days.
How many miles would that be?
We took a boat.
I don't know.
You took a boat?
We took a boat from Congo to Tanzania. Then on our way with the boat, then the boat did an accident, and the boat was divided by two in the middle of the sea. And
Sounds
by
like Paul.
so and it was at night, and my father would only the person who know how to swim, so the boat was getting deep inside the water, sinking, so that all of us would be covered with the water. So what we could do, my father would step out, take all the clothes, there's no any fear, and start taking all the luggages from the boat, and then start screaming for help. So we went out from the boat, and then we slept on the sea. We didn't know where we were, somewhere in Congo, but almost to Tanzania. That was 1996. We reached in Tanzania, and then we were the first people to open the camp. Then it took us like a month. They put us somewhere, and then they said, okay, we didn't expect this in Tanzania, like to receive refugees. So you're gonna wait here for a month so that we go and take one of the forests and then clear, because it was a forest where you find all kind of animals, snakes, elephant, everything. So the helicopter could go with the medicine and spread the whole forest to flee the animals out and then start putting refugees there. Then we were the first people to be refugees in Tanzania. From there, life was not so easy. It was so difficult. And then they gave us all kind of weapons like any elephant, any animals that can just come and disturb. Then you'll be ready to kill the animal.
Like a spear?
Yeah. So they give us a tent, the same tent that you saw there. Then you just put it according to how many people you are. Then we stayed there from 1996 to 2001. Then we went to school by learning French. We couldn't speak English, it was only French. From 2001, then life was just the same. So my mom could do business there from the camp to the capital city of Tanzania. It's called Dar es Salaam.
Where did you get your food?
The food, they were giving us food from the government, like what is
In Tanzania?
beans? Yeah, beans, porridge. So it will come, we'll make a queue, so they give one by one, each and every month. Excuse me. Okay. So from there, my mom could do some small business. And then she got some transport, and then we were there in Tanzania hearing from other people like, no, if you go to this country, maybe life will be better. So we keep on moving every time. So from Tanzania, we wanted to come to South Africa, but we passed to Malawi. Then Malawi, we crossed, we came to Mozambique. Mozambique, we found ourselves in Zimbabwe. Then from Zimbabwe, we stayed 7 months. That was 2001. And then my mom left with some of my siblings, and then I remained with my father and Kiza because the transportation was not enough. So we have to wait for when they give us like food, clothes, then we could sell those to citizens in Zimbabwe, and then we get some money, and then we add on top of what we had for us to join my mom in South Africa. So my mom came with 4 kids, and then I remained with Kiza. So we reached in South Africa 2002, February. Then that was terrible. So because we thought that being in South Africa, it would be better, but it was worse more than what we experienced. So we found in South Africa that they didn't want refugees at all. They couldn't show us until when it came to 2008, when they said, no, we're tired of refugees. We don't want refugees. Then we asked ourselves why, without any reason. So they started killing refugees. If they see you with having any, like, let me say you have a small tuck shop where you open with your money, you struggle to get there. So they'll just step in your house, ask you money, ask you your account, bank, PIN code, everything. And if you don't, they just kill you. So it was terrible and it was very painful. So we said, no, we couldn't wait. Because I remember when my mom was doing a small business on the street, just for us to survive and to go to school. So they came and then destroyed everything what my mom was selling there. She was selling some candies, biscuits on the street for us to survive. So they took all those so that we can just go back where we come from, and then there's no way. So we ran from there when they continued killing people in South Africa, 2008, and then we ran to Office of Refugees, that is UNHCR, to Pretoria. And then we were so many from different kind of city, like Cape Town, Durban, Pretoria. Then we found ourselves in one place, and then we said, we can't go back because they've killed us a lot. So when we went there, we slept 2 days outside there, and they didn't want to help us. They didn't even want to hear us. So all the roads were closed, so there was no cars passing. So the police came there and asked us questions, what is it? Then we explained to them. Then they knew what was happening, because the police in South Africa, they don't like hearing refugees or want to help, or they just want bribe. Like if you want them to help, they ask you some money, like, okay, can you give me some like this, and then I'll help you. So you find yourself you don't have that money. So then they open a camp. That's the picture that you saw there. That was called Acacia Camp. We went there 2008 in May. We were also the first person again to open the camp. They give us some brown tent from the soldier. Then they told us that, no, this is just temporary for 3 months, and then from there we'll find a solution for your problem. Then we stayed there. There was no any hope. No water, no food, nothing to eat. I don't know. So then you can't go back to find some food to eat. If they just see you in the road, they kill you. So we stayed there without any hope, without knowing why are we here, where we going, and where we from. So the government denied us, the South African government. So we get some different visitors from Canada, America, and then we could explain to them, and they were willing to help us, but the government of South Africa was very tough to open the way like refugees could just go. We stayed there almost like a year, I think a year. Then they came out and took the tent, the brown tent. They said, you people, you're very difficult. The thing is, I want you guys to go back, all of you, where you were living before. And then we're like, we can't go back because we're gonna die. South African doesn't want us anymore. So what they could do, they came with soldiers, so they took the tent out from us by force. So we stayed openly without anything. So what we could do, they said, we can't go back, or you bring those people to kill us here. What we could do, around us, there was companies, let me say like Now Food Company. Then we will go there and seek for help, and then ask them, can you just give us some plastic or boxes? Then they give us plastics and boxes, and then each and every person will go. So I remember one day I was just building my mom's house, me Then I still have some cards here that I always look at this, and then I remember when I was building my mom's house with a plastic and box, and I was like, how will it be? How will it look? And it was in the season where there was a lot of rain. So if the rain comes and the windy, it takes everything. Then you have to restart again. That was 2008, almost to 2009. Then, I don't know what can I say. And then UNHCR came and give us the other tent. The same thing again, they took it away. What they wanted, they didn't want the bad reputation to go all over the world that the refugees, that South Africa doesn't want to have refugees. They wanted to show that they don't have any bad reputation or any bad behavior with refugees. But inside, they didn't want us. So we stayed there like that. And I don't know what followed next. They came, they told us that no, time's up. We want to close the camp. Then we asked them, where are we going to go? And they said, no, it's up to you. The only thing we can give you is 3,000 rand and start your life. But if you look back, what they took from you, it's almost your whole life. And then what they're giving you, 3,000, is 3,000 is like 300 USA dollar. Yes. So you can't even buy you can't even buy, let me say, I don't know what can I say. So it's just renting a room for 1 month. Then we said, no, that's bad. So we rather die here. They said, okay, fine. We open up some shelter for you. 3 options. 1 is to take the 3,000. 2 is to get in the bus and go to the shelter. 3 is to get in the other bus and go to the prison in the jail. So the 3 options, I took the one going to shelter. My mom and my siblings took the 3,000 because my mom was like, what, there's nothing you can do. And then some Somalians and other refugees, they took another one to the jail. So the jail was full because nobody was scared of any government of South Africa again. So I found myself, I and the other refugees in the shelter, and then my mom, so we were like separate. Me in another city, my mom to another city. So life continued like that, step by step, up to when we said, no, this is terrible. Then the government could tell us, no, if you want to be resettled to another country, just step in our office by your own, not like, let's say, evacuation of a group of people. No, that's what we don't want to do it. It's individual coming to open your own case and then follow up. And if you succeed, then you'll be resettled to another country. And then my mom said, okay, let's try. And then my mom went. They started with Bawile because I was not interested in that. I was like, oh my God, even if we do this, it's not going to happen because it takes years and years to wait. My mom went and opened the case, and that's how we succeeded and then find ourselves in Chicago. That was 2000. Thank you.
That's pretty incredible. Can you tell us how you got to be Christadelphian? Because I don't know that.
Okay. Back in South Africa, after we came back from Acacia, my mom took that money and then we rent a room. So when we were there, and one brother from another province of South Africa came to our house and said, I want to open a church. So it was like telling my mom, since you're a big family, and then you've been staying in Pretoria for so many years, and you know a lot of refugees here, so I want to open a church by coming to your house, and then you can tell more people. So my mom said, okay, it's okay. So he came with one brother from Congo. We know him since we came across the refugee camps. We met him. So he said, okay, it's fine. So we were going to our house, and then he will come with books, with songs, and then we start telling people there's a new church. This man from the other province. Then people are like, okay, we want to go. So people start coming and coming. Then after a while, then the man says, since I'm staying far, it's like from here to Washington. So he says, since I'm staying far, I'll bring another brother who's close, who will be coming to teach you the Bible and coming to learn the Word of God. So he bring Lucas, and because Lucas was close. He's like from Chicago to here. Yeah. So Lucas came and he started teaching us, and we came more people, and we start telling people about Christadelphian. So by then I start learning the Bible small, and then I came to a point where they saw I was like ready to get baptized. I was the first Christadelphian female to get baptized. We were four. I was the only female and three brothers. Yeah. So we get baptized. Then from there, the church start growing until today. Christadelphian still exists in Pretoria. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Well, if that doesn't tear your hair out, or your eyes out, or your heart out, I'm not sure what will. Gloria. I thought I'd show Gloria because I thought she might like that. That's quite a story. It seems like the more we get to know each other, the more the story comes out. And I can see, yesterday Neema was telling me, she says, it's painful, and you can see why. But she was telling us about the walk, and she says, it's like, it sounded like 500-mile walk. Yet we all know this. We know that God is our refuge. He shall cover you with his feathers, and under his wings you shall take refuge. That's what the psalmist says. Actually, there's quite a few like this. God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. So no matter what troubles we have, and we all have troubles, if anybody thinks that someone doesn't have troubles, everyone's got troubles. Yet God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. May the Lord reward your work and your wages be full from the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to seek refuge. That's going back to Ruth chapter 2. So today, we look at these people. Hey, you look kind of like these people here. You're all refugees. You know that? You might not think of yourself as a refugee. Spiritually, you're a refugee. You really are. Here's what Hebrews says. It says, all these people, this is those in the Old Testament, all these people were still living by faith when they died. They did not receive the things promised. They only saw them and welcomed them from a distance, admitting that they were foreigners and strangers. They were refugees on earth. People who say such things show that they are looking for a country of their own. If they had been thinking of the country they had left, they would have had opportunity to return, like Congo. But no. Instead, they were longing for a better country. The United States is not the heavenly country, right? We're looking for a new country. Our country is good in many ways, but we're looking for a godly country. Therefore, God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he has prepared a city for them. So all the people in the Old Testament, all of us, we're all the same. We all share the same thing as far as being spiritual refugees, right? That's the lesson for you to think about. You think about some people with the hardships today. Maybe you didn't have the physical hardships, but spiritually we all fall in the same place. So the psalmist says, hear my prayer, Lord. Listen to my cry for help. Do not be deaf to my weeping. I dwell with you as a foreigner, a stranger, as all my ancestors were. That's what the psalmist says. So here's a refugee. Recognize one. There's some refugees. Here's some more. Yeah, there's lots of refugees, isn't there? Refugee just like thee. Chronicles says, everything comes from you, O Lord, and we have given you only what comes from your hand. We are foreigners and strangers in your sight, as were all our ancestors. And again, we find some more refugees. Refugee like thee. Now, it just so happens that Jesus was a refugee too. So you're involved in this, and Jesus is involved in this. So he said this to those around him. He said, foxes have dens and birds have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. Right? He didn't have any money. He had no home. He had no place to be. He was totally dependent on God. God was his refuge. So Jesus was certainly a refugee. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. That's the parable he tells. And it seems like that's something that Jesus lived as well, because sometimes he was hungry, sometimes he was thirsty, sometimes he didn't have food, and people took care of him. Interesting saying there. How can you worship a homeless man on Sunday and ignore one on Monday? So Jesus gave a promise to really all of us, to all refugees. In John 14, he says, "Do not let your hearts be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. My Father's house has many rooms. If that were not so, would I have told you so, that I am going there to prepare a place for you? And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you to be with me where I am, that where I am, you may be also." Paraphrase there. So Jesus is not saying that he went to heaven, he's coming back to take us to heaven. When he says my Father's house is his temple, right? That's what Jesus always referred to his Father's house as, the temple. So he says, I'm going to bring you to God. I'm going to bring you to the kingdom. The kingdom, that's where refugees want to be. Refugees don't want to be in Chicago. I mean, that's nice. It's probably better than Pretoria, but we want to go to New Jerusalem. That's where the kingdom is. That's where all refugees want to be. That's where the children want to be, is with the Father. So we read this. This is the end here in Ephesians. Remember that